welcome back to the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. I hope y'all have been having a good week. It's been kind of a wild one in the news, but there's been quite a few good memes on the internet, and I do appreciate good memes. So, hope y'all have been hanging in there and having a good time. Today, I have a returning guest with me today, and I'm really looking forward to chat with him about all of the wonderful things that have been going on in TF and the work that's been going on. So, BinturongBoy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. I'm BinturongBoy. Like mentioned before, I'm a returning guest, and it's absolutely fantastic to be on here again. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I was really looking forward to having you back on. We haven't had someone back from the season one crew as of yet, and so I was really excited to bring you back and kind of see how you like the new format and kind of going through some of those questions.
Oh, you know me, I'm always up for a good change. I always like a bit of change.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we like to hear.
Good old change, can't go nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not. Nothing's ever gone wrong in transformation or change, obviously.
Oh
Like,
no, never. It's always sunshines and rainbows with TF and change.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nothing bad ever happens. One of the things I was actually really keen to talk to you about kind of relates to a discussion that I had on the last episode with Angerboda and ABCD. We talked a little bit about kind of the history of the fandom, and that kind of got me thinking about what the state is now in terms of like kind of the current platforms. We talked about, these old platforms and how they worked, but I think it would be really interesting to chat a little bit about the current platforms for transformation art and writing and such and how we navigate them. So I was curious to ask you, what your experience has been like sharing art and other content on things like Twitter and Fur Affinity and how that's kind of evolved into its current state.
Twitter and FA have been I kind of like it's very been like a big difference in both ways the websites work because obviously FA is more for furry content and it's very like it does try and get out there for the furries and the artists and anyone that creates and stuff like that
Hmm.
and content creators and such, but like I always found Twitter to be a bit more effort in my opinion. Like it's a bit more a Wild West sort of land. Like it's like you got the fact you got to battle the algorithm, you got to battle potential like blocks of suspensions, you got to battle like other artists, you got to battle the thumbnail crops and all that stuff and the
Hmm.
hashtags, and you got to make sure you're on the trend. Like it feels like a sprint, and then the other one feels more like a leisure marathon, in my opinion.
That's actually a really interesting kind of analogy. And I think, with Twitter in particular, I've always like found that when I try to post art content, it's almost like you're trying something new every day to fight the algorithm
Mm,
because sometimes people will be like, oh, if you put a hashtag, it's actually like reducing the engagement. So it's like, okay, I was using hashtags because I thought it was helpful to find. So maybe I'll like try to make a post without one. Or like people will say, oh, if you have too much text in your tweet that's attached to the image, then it's also going to go less far. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll like try that too. And it feels almost like a bit of a game of whack-a-mole sometimes with like all the different things that could potentially hamper your reach on the art that you've, put all this time into.
yeah, like I totally agree. Like it's like I hear so many things like every day about saying commissions or mentioning PayPal or mentioning
Yeah.
furry or something or word or something every day. It's like always different. Like it's one day you can post a piece of artwork that says commissions open and then the next day you can't. And it's like
Yeah.
it's so uncertain. It's kind of like it's kind of stressful, you know what I mean? Like it's like, is it
Hmm.
going to be noticed or is it not? You know, unless you're drawing
Yeah.
exactly what or posting exactly what people like, and you have people on there already that have followed you from other sites, then I feel like it is going to be like a way more harder struggle.
No, I agree. And I was curious to know like when you have like put art pieces on Twitter, for example, and you kind of obviously on the back end you can kind of see how things perform to some degree in terms of like engagement stuff. I was wondering like have you ever had an experience where you posted something that you really liked and you thought was kind of like going to do well, and then it didn't, and it then had to like readjust your process afterwards for sharing in the future. Have you had to do that at all?
Yeah, quite often actually. Like, you know that classical artist meme where someone posts something that's a sketch and it gets like 1,000 likes within like an
Yes.
hour, and then they do like a really detailed piece and it gets like 1 like within a day. That's honestly, it generally happens.
Hmm.
It's like almost as if the only interactions you get nowadays, unless it's very catered towards audience members, is you just get a like and then that's it. You don't get sometimes a retweet or even feedback or even like a
Hmm.
comment saying cool. It's very rare to get that unless it really caters to the audience. And I mean, it has to engage the audience and it has to involve the audience, like using words or prompts or angles or literally making it so the person can relate to it in a way.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And I guess, I'm curious then to know when you've been like drawing TF content, has there been any specific TF content, like species or themes or scenarios that seem to perform better on, like, for example, Twitter and like really tend to punch above their weight? Because I know I've noticed there's certain things that when I do them, they seem to do well consistently, even in spite of all the other algorithm stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think there's definitely certain themes like I've noticed over the years of being on the internet and doing this stuff for like years is like there is kind of like a trend. It's almost like a graph, like an algorithm graph on a YouTube page sort of thing. And it's like, but
Hmm.
imagine each of those dots are like different species or different themes. Like I've noticed recently in the last couple of years, it's cows and bovines that really, really get the views. And I know like years ago it was pigs and swines and all that sort of stuff. So hogs, swines and all that stuff that were popular for me and people on Twitter. But now it's the bovines and stuff like that, and I've noticed bovine art has gotten really popular in the last couple of years, like more so than before. So I know that's what's really been like outshining, especially ones where again it's either involving the audience or kind of like in a way wording it so the audience can react to it.
Yeah, that is one of the ones that I've noticed consistently does better, at least in terms of like my content. And I've noticed it's usually that or like big dick energy wolves, for lack of a better
Mm.
term, that seems to do really well with the algorithm, which I mean, I'm not complaining. I enjoy making those. But yeah, I definitely think there's been a trend with cows and bovines in particular as of late. And it's interesting to me, not because like I don't like that content or that I don't understand the appeal, but like you said, it seems like there's been kind of a shift over the last few years in terms of that being something that gets highlighted a lot by the algorithm or what have you. And it just always makes me wonder, like, is this a genuine shift in people's interests, or are the algorithms, I'm sure this isn't conscious, but like, are the algorithms just like focusing or spotlighting on this one kind of transformation content more, and therefore we are also moving? Like, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation, Like, are the people moving in that direction, or is it the algorithm that's moving us in that direction?
Mm, that's a good question. I personally seem to think like maybe it's like behavioral sort of like circles. So like someone draws a
Hmm.
cow and then the algorithm might pick it up because obviously it's getting likes and views, so it starts pushing it a bit more. But then the person goes, okay, this is getting quite a lot of views and likes and retweets and all that stuff. So I go draw more of it, and then the algorithm picks up again. So I think it's kind of like a sort of circle, like it's like an endless circle
Yeah.
of like it's just going in and out because it's like okay, they did something, they got a reaction, they're going to do it again because they got the reaction, and then they do it again and got the reaction. So I do think it's like maybe a mixture of both of them, in my opinion.
Interesting. It's kind of like a feedback loop.
Yeah, because like obviously it is literally like a wild west on the Twitter. Like you just don't know if you're going to one day
Yeah.
be on Twitter or the next day you're just suddenly going to shoot up and then suddenly get suspended the next minute. Like you never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's definitely, and I kind of talked about this in the last episode, but with these kind of sites, because it's not maintained by someone who's within the community, like everything could disappear like this, and then everything could be gone that you had built up, kind of like what happened with Tumblr, right? So
Mm,
there's always kind of a concern, particularly with Twitter and the direction it's going. Like it has been very permissive of not safe for work content for now, but what is that going to be in the future, right? Whereas like, with Fur Affinity, it's owned by someone in the community, and like, yeah, the guidelines change from time to time. I know they just had a big revamp on some of their guidelines around like AI art, but at least there, it's owned by someone in the community. It's owned by like a group of people who actually cares about the community, and so there's a little bit more consistency and stability there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, furry sites tend to be made for the furries, but Twitter's kind of like, it's almost like we're intruding on someone else's territory. Like, Twitter was never meant to be for artists, it's never meant to be for like content creators or anything like that. It was literally just meant to be literally just a billboard, like a Snapchat. Like, it's just meant to be something that popular and famous people use to just tweet random stuff. But,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, we've kind of just taken over a little corner of it, which I mean, hey, I love going into places and changing them, so that's fine with me.
I mean,
Um,
that's what we do.
it is. That's literally what we do. It's our modus operandi. But, when it comes to Fur Affinity, then Fur Affinity obviously has had its own issues with regards to content and transformation stuff and how that kind of sometimes is handled on there. I was curious then to know, like, do you find the upload experience or like being on Fur Affinity still gives you like a significant audience, or has it kind of dropped off as like Twitter has become a larger space for people to share their content?
This is an interesting question because I do give my own, like, I do ask these questions to myself quite a lot because I'm always trying to figure out stuff and what can I do next? What's the new big thing for me to follow on and trend on and stuff like that? And it has been
Yeah.
a really big question I've been asking myself a lot. I don't necessarily know if it's some of the stuff I do
Hmm.
or because obviously I've been posting a lot of my Patreon stuff on FA to fill in the content to prove that I'm still alive. I'm still making content because I don't like to make all my stuff on a paywall. I do like to show off what I'm doing, especially if stuff I'm proud of. Like, I do want to give people content and stuff like that, but it does become a bit repetitive. It is true in the sense of I do feel like there's been a lack of response on FA, even on Twitter sometimes, depending on what it
Hmm.
is in recent time, but I don't quite know if that's because I've not been doing more of my typical stuff, shall we say? Like, I haven't had more time to do personal art in the last, like, gosh knows how long.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
there's so many unfinished ideas and pieces I want to do, so I've not been able to put my full effort, like, full shebang, like, BinturongBoy magic into it, shall we say. Like, it's only
Yeah.
been same images, same angle, personal pieces, or it's been Patreon pieces and sometimes commission pieces. But it's just like I have noticed there has been like a drop kind of in both sides, but there is definitely I've noticed a more sort of active audience on Twitter compared to FA.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's like even if it's the likes, there's a lot more interest in the likes. And either people retweeting it, sometimes even commenting on it, compared to FA, like sometimes I'll repost a Patreon piece of a cow because they always end up doing really well recently on FA, but that would get like 5 comments. But like compared to Twitter, where sometimes like you get the random people out of nowhere going, "Oh, I wish that was me," and "Oh, I want to be next," or "Oh, pass me that cowbell." "Oh gosh, I wish that was me," or like "Moo." It's just like you know what I mean. It's just like oh, needs more
Yeah.
cowbell. I've not heard that in a while,
Yeah.
but
Ah, that's a good one.
but yeah, it's like I have noticed there's a big difference between feedback on Twitter compared to FA, but it still doesn't feel like a lot on Twitter, and I think that's the trap of Twitter. You never feel like you're doing
Hmm.
enough on Twitter because everyone else is doing more, but it's not. It's the algorithm tricking you.
Yeah, exactly.
But who knows? Like, I don't know, because it's like Twitter, TikTok, and all that tends to be the thing that people go on more because it's more accessible, it's public, whether that's a good
Hmm.
thing or not, depending on if it's not safe for work or not. It's like it's more accessible, it's quicker. Sometimes art sites like DeviantArt, Transfer, and all that stuff are just slowly dying out for some reason. And I don't know if the same
Hmm.
is happening for FA because it's kind of been stuck in this. slowly trying to get back on its feet loop or what?
Yeah, it has been a little stagnant as of late. That's definitely true. And, I think that kind of also brings me to kind of my next point, which is, like, do you have any sort of like presence on any of the smaller kind of like furry sites out there? Because I know that people frequently gripe about FA and then something will happen with FA and people be like, oh, I'm going somewhere else. And the other sites like, Ink Bunny, So Furry, Weasel, like they're all out there and they all have a lot of benefits, but they don't always seem to have the audience there. And so oftentimes you'll just get people who do like the whole like, friendship with FA is over. Now using FA but being mad about it is my new best friend. So
Oh, that's fantastic. That is literally it, though. You get these waves of people where, like, something happens on FA, and everyone's like, yeah, I'm going, yeah, I'm deactivating, and all that stuff, which, yeah, some people do, and they keep to their words.
yeah.
But there is no other site kind of like FA. I don't quite know why. I don't know whether it's because it's the simplicity of FA. Because I gotta be fair, I'm on other sites. I'm on Transfer and I'm trying to be more active on that. I think I'm on Fair. I've made accounts, but I don't quite use them. I think it's so to keep that.
Yeah.
I want to keep my name just in case.
Yeah.
But it's like I used to be on Weasel, I think it's called, like you said,
Hmm.
but I don't go on that anymore. Like I've got stuff on there from years ago that I just don't bother sorting out anymore. And it's like I don't quite know. Like I think it's because as kind of slightly outdated and a bit rusty and a bit unsure FA is, it's for me, it's the fact that it still has a way, way more active member count and
Base, yeah.
it's more simple for me to use. Like Weasley's a bit too over the top for me, and other sites like Fairy Network and all that stuff, I'm not sure about. I would
Hmm.
like to give them a try, but I just personally don't know because it's like I already got to deal with my Discord, then I got to deal with my Patreon, then I got to deal with my Twitter,
Yeah.
then I got to deal with my FA, and it's like it can get really overwhelming. And I know there's things to help with you with that, but it's like I'm good with stuff, but I'm not good with that stuff. I can't.
Yeah.
You could literally give me a YouTube tutorial and do it for me, and I still wouldn't understand what you're doing. That sort of thing.
Yeah. That is absolutely understandable, and I think that that is almost one of the perils right now of everything being so fragmented. It's like you're doing the art, but then you have to do like management from a marketing perspective on like all these different platforms. And so it's like, once you've tackled the ones that you have your biggest audience on, it's like I don't have the effort to like maintain something else. I mean, God, I'm personally terrible with this. I can barely manage one. So like when people are like, "Oh, I gotta post it on my FA, I gotta post it on my Twitter. I have a Telegram channel, I have a Discord, I have a Patreon, I have like a transfer." I'm like, Jesus Christ, you lost me after the second step. Like,
I mean, I wish there was a site where I could literally just upload it somewhere and just leave it, but obviously you got to keep getting audience in, you got to keep getting people in, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you got to keep the
yeah.
ball rolling and get yourself out there because the world ain't gonna wait for you. You got to go after it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so then I guess, since you mentioned it, like I know that you've been obviously running a Patreon for a while now, and I was curious to know like how that's kind of played into the way you make content. And since it's kind of tied to Discord, has that been like just another thing to manage, or do you think that's actually enhanced your connection with the audience?
I gotta be fair. The people on my Patreon are absolute saints, and I genuinely, genuinely, genuinely love every single one of my supporters because they have helped me through, without even probably knowing, they've genuinely helped me through the hardest moments of my life recently. But Patreon itself, I don't like it. I'm gonna be fair, I had a really, really, really bad experience with them not too long ago, actually last year,
Oh no.
and I really don't like the way they kind of have such a badly optimized site, in my opinion. Like,
Hmm.
I can't use it on my phone. My phone is already bad, but it's like, it just bricks. Like, the app bricks, the browser version bricks. um, it's impossible to use on the mobile, but like, I don't technically like the site, but I love the support that the site has given me in a way, if you know what I mean. Like, the fact that I'm
Yeah.
able to, like, it's hard to explain, but it's like I like how, even though it doesn't seem like it much at the moment, sadly because of stuff that's gone on,
Hmm.
I really like when I was able to do it to engage with my audience and going, right, these people are giving me money. What can I give them? That's why I do the rewards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth, and I want to know also because sometimes you can make a journal and people could just say, "Oh yeah, I want TF, I want TF," but like there's something about people coming up to you on Discord or something like that and going, "Oh yes, how about this?" Or, "Oh, I'm just gonna chat in the general chat," or you know what, like it's like a little community, and it's
Hmm.
a bit hard to manage because obviously it's like again I'm not Discord savvy, so I don't know what I'm doing with like bots and roles and stuff like that. I barely even figured out how to color coordinate stuff on my Discord, but I mean, I had to manually sort out who was a higher tier, lower tier, mid tier, that sort of thing recently, and
Yeah.
that was a complete mess. I definitely think it has enhanced my connection to the audience, and
Hmm.
I am hoping once I say this every day, every year, and I do apologize if any of my supporters hear this, but I really, really hope by next year that I can really kind of like boom up that enhancement. I want to do more polls, more behind the scenes, more stuff like people want to see, like actually like because before I used to do this thing where they used to vote on what piece I finish or what piece I do,
Yeah, I remember that.
and some of them ended up being really good. Like some of them got proper popular. Like I remember one that was Sparrow turning into a sheep, and that got really
Yes.
popular to the point where someone commissioned me for a second part. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And it's brilliant because the community gives me something and I try and give it back. And then they give
Hmm.
me feedback in response. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's been great for the community. And I feel like it's been great for me with the community and the supporters. But I personally just don't like the site. But I don't
Yeah.
want to
No,
get.
that's fair.
I don't really think I can handle the way subscribe star works either because during my predicament,
Hmm.
which was basically they told me that they withdrew my money, but they I never got it, and I spent ages, like half the year, trying to get my money back, which I was
Ugh.
using to pay rent and bills.
Yeah.
That's all it's ever used for, really. But I was fighting and fighting. This dude just would not like get it, and then just one day, this other woman came in, and I got it instantly. Like I don't know what the problem was, but they sorted it straight away. But I was looking up other sites like Subscribestar, I think it was, and there's like other sites now that you could go on, but like again, as janky as Patreon is, it's the simplicity of it I like.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very simple to get set up. I recently went through that for the podcast, so getting it set up actually was quite straightforward, which I did appreciate. I'm also not a huge fan of its interface, to be completely honest,
Mm,
but being able to like set up a Discord that goes and connects to it, and once that's all kind of sorted out, it does really make for a really nice community, I think, which is really nice.
absolutely, yeah. There's something about it where you can literally like proper engage with your people in a Discord server that are part of the Patreon. You know what I mean? And plus, I get to personally thank anyone because obviously I get a notification when someone joins, so I personally get to thank them, which I feel like is a bit more nicer than the kind of robotic response you get from what Patreon does, where like you can send
Mhm.
someone one, but it does it all the time anyway. Like I could personally go thank them and say hello to them and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that aspect too, honestly. So then, I was kind of curious to dig into some of the themes that I think I've seen in some of your work. And one of the things that actually really stood out to me that I was curious to ask you about is like oviposition and like egg laying, because it's an interest that I'm personally not really keyed into. So I'm always really interested when there's something I don't fully grasp to get a better understanding. So I'd love to see if like maybe you could help like explain like what you find hot about it and what you think people enjoy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to explain. Like it's one of those things that I always sat down and gone, yeah, that's kind of hot. But I think my personal interest in it is like it's like a different kind of pregnancy. Like I always thought about it's like it's almost like it's not like an aftermath thinking sort of thing. sometimes you might think of like the aftermath of like, oh yeah, I laid an egg. What am I gonna do with it? Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
people just go egg laying. Like it's almost like an instant sort of thing. Like it's like because obviously you see these scenarios where people like get impregnated straight away, and then 5 minutes
Mhm.
later they're like laying it and all that stuff, and it's like I think it's also because if you think about it physically, depending on where it is, it can hit the good spots. If you think about it, if you really think about it, if you're engaging in the scene or the story or the comic or the
Mhm.
picture, you can really start to think about how does it feel like, and you're like, if you've kind of experienced that sort of feeling of something like that going out or whatever, it's hard to
Yeah.
explain. Like,
Yeah.
I can imagine, I think it's the imagination sort of aspect of it. Like, people imagine, like, it's almost like a curiosity, sort of like imaginative thing. It's
Mhm.
almost like TFing. It's like, how would that feel? Like, how would it feel to turn into a dog? Yeah, would it be like hot? Would it be like itchy? Would it be like warm? Would it be like erotic? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I think people get wound up in the whole imaginative thing, and it's like, also, it depends on the scenario, I feel.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think the setting really helps with the whole interest of it all. I just personally just like the whole idea of like I don't know, like especially if it's TF related, I like the idea of
Mhm.
laying eggs.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. I guess I think that does kind of like explain it to me to some degree because I think when we think about particular tropes within transformation, there's definitely some that they would probably be at least somewhat painful to like experience if they were actually happening, but also that can be hot for people. The idea of it itself can be hot. And yeah, I guess it definitely seems like it's keyed into the whole tactile experience because you would literally be, expelling something that's like, quite large in some of these drawings. And I guess maybe it's kind of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's almost a sense of like, as you would like push each one out, maybe there's like a sense of release there that is like kind of interesting. Maybe I'm completely off base. I don't know.
No, I think you've got it right on the head there. I think it is literally a case of like you were correct in saying that because it's like it must be that sense of building up. You know what I mean? Like it's that
Hmm.
build up feeling. It's that idea of maybe feeling bloated and like kind of like or warm and woozy and maybe like turned on. And then it's the release and feeling each one coming out like slow or fast. But it's like it's hard at first but then they just keep coming, and it's probably that mix of relief as well as the sensation that's probably the idea of it being, you know, hot that people seem to like.
That makes sense. And I guess for me, something I've noticed as well with kind of the theme is that it's often married to like TFTG, which I think is an interesting point because like egg laying isn't necessarily like a quote unquote woman thing, given sex and gender are not the same thing, but there does seem to be a draw towards it, at least from what I've seen in like the TFTG sphere. So forgive the pun, but what do you think kind of birthed that interest? And is it something we should question more?
That pun was excellent. Um,
Amazing. Well played, well played.
enough with the yolks. Uh, I can imagine it's like something similar to like cow TF in terms of like it's kind of embedded,
Hmm.
like egg laying. Females do it, like or feminine related like parts do that, and
Hmm.
that's normally what people often into TFTG kind of do sometimes, like the idea of like birthing or egg laying as a way to kind of really imprint that they are now a feminine or they have like the stuff the stuff
Yeah.
to make the eggies or the babies, and it's like I think it's a way of like whether you're into it or not, it's like it's a really like solid yes, this is your new life now. You are now a chicken. You are now laying the egg. This is your big moment to like realize what your life's gonna be now. And I think that's why it's
Hmm.
almost like, in my opinion, it's almost like either the starting point or the full stop. Like it's almost like literally like a physical full stop. Like
Hmm.
I don't quite know exactly why, because obviously everyone's different. Why exactly
Yeah.
TFTG is related to it, but I do feel like it is something to do with, like I said, it's like, especially if it's a male turning into a female, it's literally like the realization and the impending like doom or pleasure, depending on who you are and
Yeah.
how you like it. It's literally like solidifying it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're getting right at it. And I think that does make sense to me in the sense of like, if you are into that kind of a change, this is something that you can add to it that really just hammers home maybe the finality of it. It may be kind of in the mind of the person, like reaffirms just like how different they are now. It's not just the fact that they have different parts, it's also that those parts are actively like performing a new function, and that can be something that people find really hot. Yeah, I think the way you've kind of framed it makes sense to me because it definitely seems like a sense of finality in many senses, and some people really like that permanent TF. So
Yeah, exactly. And even if it's not TF related, sometimes, or even, shall we say, a reverse, where it's sometimes a male turned into a female. Oh, sorry, a female turned into a male. Like maybe like the idea of birthing them another way causes a bit of a weird sort of like intriguingly like erotic feeling because it's like, well, technically men don't lay eggs, or like they don't have the stuff
yeah.
to lay eggs, but sometimes that could be like even more of a turn on. I feel it's like
Hmm.
it's what interests me about the fandom so much is that it feels very like nothing's necessarily too weird.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like if you've been on a fandom long enough, certain things just really don't like make you go, oh. It's just like okay, especially if some of the things that I've drawn, I've just been like, at first I was like, oh, why? I don't get it. Why is it coming out the pee-pee hole? That sounds painful. But now I'm just like, yeah, I can imagine that probably feels really hot.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I feel like, with TF, like this is not universal, but like at least for me and I feel like for a number of people, it's like you start out you're like, "Ah, yes, I like this one very specific sort of vanilla type of TF." And then if you're here for like long enough, you're like, "Ah, yes, I too would like to become a horse's ass." Like it's like, "How did that happen?
Yeah,
Where is this coming from?" Like, what?
it's like it's like literally a transition in like your
It is.
interests. It's like I wish to
It
be a
is.
horse. Now you're just like I wish to be a horse's butt. Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's like what like I don't know how this happened, but I'm not complaining. Oh my goodness. And so, with egg laying, obviously that intersects a lot with like the theme of pregnancy within TF. So I guess you kind of alluded to this at the beginning, but I guess like do you think the draw is similar or do you think there's something unique about oviposition that pregnancy TFs just can't match in the same way?
I think it's like back to what I said before at the beginning was it's different. Like it's like the aftermaths are different. Like a lot of people from what I remember from doing it and seeing it, a lot of people don't really kind of think about the aftermaths of laying eggs. Like they just go, "Yep, I've laid eggs. Let's go for round 10," or that's it, that's the end. Like you don't
Yeah.
really necessarily always find out what happens to them or like stuff like that. But like proper live births, like babies or cubs or
Hmm.
pups or anything like that, like I feel like that sort of pregnancy is like it's a bit more like long term. Sometimes it can be slower. It's a bit more
Hmm.
either daunting for some people. Like it's a bit more in the darker sort of like TFTGs or TF sometimes.
Hmm.
Because obviously you got to think of the aftermath because it's like technically it's like the live child's right there. I mean, obviously depending on the egg,
Yeah.
it could be alive as well. But I feel like furries and people interested in that have like this idea that the eggs aren't necessarily fertile unless it's literally TFGG, where if it's like a crocodile laying eggs, then yeah, you might get a scene where the baby crocs are coming out. Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like, I personally I like both, but it's like I
Hmm.
can see why people like one or the other. Because I used to not like pregnancy, but I used to go, yeah, that's okay. But now it's
Yeah.
like, no, they're both good. I like them both. It's like both are good. um, both are interesting in their own way. But I can see why,
Mhm.
especially if I completely correct me if I'm wrong or anything like that. But from what I've
Mhm.
noticed, especially if it's people who identify as male who are interested in
Mhm.
TFGG to female, a lot of the time it's like they kind of like the idea of pregnancy, but like the idea of like it's sort of being a bit more or less daunting. Like I said, like
Mhm.
there's a lot more responsibility with like life births and there's the aftermath and like sometimes they just don't like that, like which is totally
Yeah,
fine.
that's fair.
And some people like the idea of just eggs just being more easier to like deal with and birth and stuff like that. And I think like it's more of a easier, safer, less intense interest than live births, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like
No, that does.
I feel like if it's like maybe down the line they might be interested in live births, but like sometimes they keep it safe and they just go, yeah, we'll keep the eggies for now.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about
No,
them
I
later.
no, I think that hits it on the head, and I obviously, like, especially within the realm of like a TFTG, when you are thinking about people going from one to the other, there's also the sense of like, maybe you're a little more into this because you don't have to like think about the ramifications as much, whereas like someone who maybe is already starting on that end is like, yeah, I already kind of like understand a bit better how that might be, and I'm not so much into that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
you got it exactly there. I was trying my best to explain that because obviously, like, there are some females who are obviously like into
of
like
course.
pregnancy and stuff like that, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Like, fair do. But it's like you normally see people who identify as masculine or more so male who are interested in to turn into females go way more for the pregnancy and birthing thing. And I think it is back to the whole, it's the full stop. It's the this is who you are now. It's the this is your life,
Hmm.
and well as like it's the trying to figure the word. It's not really the safer route.
It's a more foreign route
Yeah,
almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
less intense,
Yeah.
maybe if that's the right word.
Awesome. Well, the other thing I know that you've kind of done a lot in your work that I find really interesting is kind of wish fulfillment. And, like, while it's sometimes a bit less common at times, like in transformation in general, I think wish fulfillment within TF has definitely always been a strong part of transformation work. And it kind of stands pretty starkly, I would say, in opposition to humiliation, body horror, and a lot of the other more intense themes. So, how do you feel about wish fulfillment broadly? And is it a theme that you incorporate only into commissions, or do you find a lot of personal enjoyment incorporating it into your personal work as well?
But this is the interesting part, because it's
Hmm.
like I like the darker TFs because obviously that's what I got introduced to, like curses and werewolves and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
witches and stuff like that. So wish
Hmm.
fulfillments were big for me. Like I always liked the idea of like a wish, but a wish gone wrong. Like you got your
Right.
wish, but it's got a catch. Like yes, you're a donkey, but you're a farm working donkey, or like
Yeah.
I like the whole wish fulfillment like stuff, but there's something attached to it. I personally prefer to do it, and I only kind of mainly do it with my personal work because it's like obviously that's what I like. And I do notice
Hmm.
a lot of people nowadays kind of don't do the darker TFs that much anymore. There's only like a couple of people I know that do like kind of more risque, kind of like to the roots TF sort of stuff. And it's like, I personally want to be one of those people when I've got more time, but like, I don't personally see a lot of it in my commissions. I just more so want to do it with my personal art. I mean, I can't really remember off the top of my head any that were like wish fulfillments, but were with a darker twist. Which I'm more than welcome to absolutely like encourage people. Like, if they want that sort of thing, even if it's a happy wish fulfillment, go ahead. I love the whole wish thing. Like, whether it's a dark or light thing, I generally really love both, but I do prefer the darker side to it.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Off the top of my head, and I'm showing a bit of my entire ass. I know that when I was still in the reward tier, there were definitely a few that I pitched to you that were kind of like wish fulfillment, but I don't know if I touched on any darker themes, to be honest. Maybe I should have. Hmm.
This is it, everyone, because I think this is the whole thing with artists and stuff like that, is especially ones that don't have a lot of personal time, is like they just produce the ones that get the interest, or they produce the ones that people want, or they produce the ones that they are commissioned to do. But deep down inside, they actually like the opposite, or they want to do more of a certain thing that people don't realize. So it's like you wouldn't know, like you wouldn't know that I
Yeah.
like that sort of stuff, like without me saying, like or always drawing, which hopefully I'll get to do at some point.
Yeah. I certainly hope so.
I'm always up for drawing that sort of stuff. Like I love like sometimes it's nice to just go dark. Like that's why I always love Halloween and sometimes Christmas because it's like a lot of like curses and darker and like wishes gone wrong or like twisted stuff that happens then. Like sometimes horror TF and it's like yeah.
Oh my gosh, that I think you just like unlocked a memory in my mind. There was one that I remember you did for me that was for Halloween that was very much actually going into the darker side of like, oh, you wish that you could get into like the Halloween spirit and it's like, oh, Halloween spirit? Okay, that's fine. Now you're a pumpkin, you know? Like what are you going to do about that? That shit I think is really fun.
Yes, I actually really loved drawing that because it was like the pumpkin TF, like, oh, it's like you said, it's that wish fulfillment. It's like, oh yeah, oh, I wish I got a pumpkin, or I wish, oh, there's no pumpkins, or I wish I could be part of the like Halloween show and stuff like that. But it's like,
Yeah.
it's almost like goosebumps sort of like thing, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that kind of like goosebumps theming of like, ah, yeah, you're gonna get what you asked for, and it's not gonna be the way you thought it was.
Yeah,
That stuff's always great to me.
see, I never grew up with Goosebumps because obviously I was very slow with reading. It's the same thing I said before with Animorphs, but I remember the book
Hmm.
covers. But I grew up with this TV show called Grim Tales for oh, what is it called? Like Grim Tales for Gruesome Kids. That's what I think it was called.
Ah, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
I remember those.
It was like it was the same premise of like they get what they deserve or they got what they wished for and stuff like that. And it's like I don't think many of them had TF in it, but it was like the same premise of you get what you wished for.
Yeah. Oh, I love that stuff. As we can both tell, we both like this stuff.
I think that's why I was very eager to draw your stuff.
Yeah, I'm very glad. I very much lean into that kind of shit. And something I also find really interesting about wish fulfillment is sometimes it can really like bump up against these themes that can be a little bit uncomfortable. So like, one person's fantasy can be another person's horror. So, for example, if you're wishing to change someone else and it's maybe against their will, that can be kind of a tricky topic to handle. So, I guess I was curious to know, like, how do you feel about situations like that or scenarios like that, and how do you kind of handle them in artwork when you're like commissioned for them or otherwise?
um, Obviously you can't please everyone.
Hmm.
That's obviously just a straight up answer. It's just you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
But like, I'm going to be fair. In my opinion, in my opinion, this is going to sound a bit messed up, but I kind of like it if I draw something that's not meant to be seen as a good thing, and people react in a
Hmm.
way that's like, "Oh no, 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 I don't like that," or "Oh, I wish that had a happy ending," or something like that. I kind of like that. I'm glad because that's exactly what I want, and it's like if anything, them saying they don't like it, or at least like they don't like it because they're not meant to like it, is a really good thing. And I wouldn't ever change a person's opinion on it unless they came up to me and said, "Oh, why do you like this sort of thing?" Because like
Hmm.
that's not my job. That's not what I do. I just draw the things, and people they like it or they don't. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
What was the other question?
Oh, it was more like, when you have like situations where someone's like specifically like, I want this picture and my wish fulfillment is changing that other person and they clearly do not want to be changed in the piece. Like we're not talking like real world, we're talking like in the context of art. Like how do you like navigate, I guess, doing that in artwork? Because I imagine sometimes it can feel maybe a little uncomfortable, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just like, yeah, I'm also really into changing someone else, in the context of art against their will.
Well, obviously, if it's consented on both
Yeah.
sides, then I'm going to be fair. They want unwilling, they're going to get unwilling to the max because I generally
Hmm.
I love that sort of stuff. Like I mentioned,
Yeah.
I love darker themes. I love the horror aspect. I love, they get what they deserved, sort of like wish fulfillment gone wrong, blah, blah, blah. Like, so to be asked to draw unwilling stuff, like whether it's punishment, a prank, or anything of that type. I generally really love doing that, and I personally wish I got asked to draw that more because, and with different themes and ideas and species, because I feel like that's not been explored enough nowadays, especially. Like,
Hmm.
there's a couple people I could probably think of that do that, but like, it's just those people. Like, I don't see certain people doing that anymore. I mean, I personally don't get to do much of it anymore because obviously, like I said, personal time. But
Yeah.
I love to change that.
I will say I have seen you do like stuff kind of in that vein before, which I think is great. But I do agree that there's definitely less of it around. One artist that definitely comes to mind who I've seen do it multiple times is Sky. Sky has done it a bunch of times in terms of like, oh, this person's changing another person, and maybe they weren't willing for it, but it's happening anyways. Ha ha ha. That kind of like witchy stuff is always so much fun.
I know there's one person I follow because they get that good stuff. It's like they got the good stuff
Yeah,
that I like.
yeah.
I know Sky does it, but there's one person I like way more because they do stuff I don't even particularly like. But I'm just like, in that context, yeah, that's okay. like it's
Hmm.
kind of a case of yeah, and like yeah, but it's kind of refreshing to see that, and that's like Snake 8, 9. I think they're fairly recently new on the TF scene, but they do a lot of like very dark stuff, like very very dark stuff, and it's the good stuff I like. Like, yeah, you could get someone turning into a dog, but this person goes really, really into it, like both mentally, physically. There's like, there's a lot of stuff that's like, some of them have like very kind of like sometimes upsetting subjects, and some things, again, I don't like, but
Hmm.
it's still nice to see that. Because I don't know if this is going to upset some people, but I'm kind of sick of the happy-go-lucky TF that happens a lot, and the
Ooh,
horny.
spicy
I
take.
know. It's not right. Right before everyone just like issues refunds and leaves me. I don't like it. Like I love drawing TF,
Yeah.
whether it's happy, sad, horny, whatever. But I'm gonna put my hands on the table. I do wish it had a bit more spice to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm hoping, like I say 1,000 times now, I can start implementing that because the problem is it's not my customers, it's me. Because obviously, at the end of the day, I advertise what I can do, and if I'm advertising one thing, that's the one thing people are going to go for. Which is why I think, in my opinion, the bovines are selling a lot because that's what I keep pushing out. So
Yeah.
if I start doing the unwilling and the darker and the wish fulfillment stuff, then hopefully, maybe, um, hopefully, maybe that will garner certain interest. Because I know, for example, like you mentioned, the egg laying stuff, I don't do much of that anymore. But that's because I'm not pushing that out. Kind of pun intended there. Like pushing that out like as much. Like I need to start pushing these things out, which is what I'm hoping to do. Like I want to do wet and messy. I want to do tentacles. I want to do unwilling TF. I want to do egg laying more. So hopefully I'll get to do that. But going back to it, if it's definitely consensual, I absolutely love doing unwilling TF, especially with other people involved. Especially, I'm not pressuring anyone, especially if it's any of my characters or me involved, as in like
Oh yeah.
doing the TFing, because I actually like doing the TFing, especially if it's unwilling. Like I like that kind of idea.
Oh yeah, that stuff is so much fun. Like honestly, I really enjoy when the artist gets to take their characters and insert them into the situation because it adds this level of like interplay, and this is something I think that's always really nice about any sort of transformation content that has more than just one person in it. It's like you just get this interplay from two people reacting to one another that I think is really cool, and you don't often get to see that all the time with commissions or otherwise. Because I mean, often it's just someone is commissioning something of themselves and that's it, and that's great.
Hmm.
But when you have more than one person in play, it can really play up different elements of the scenario, be it like people reacting in horror, or people being like really into it, or like one person is changing the other. You get a lot of really interesting stuff out of it.
Yeah, like it fleshes it out a bit more, and it's like I feel like it adds more of a story. If there's no story to it, I like the idea of like someone turning into something because of someone else without normally
Hmm.
any context and just letting your imagination roll. Like, why did they turn it into someone? Sometimes, like, some text is absolutely fine to get your mind going, but like, it's like, oh yeah, two people turning into dogs that are horny and happy. Yep, we know how the story's going there. You know how it's going to end. But like, it's like, like, there's something about darker, unwilling TF that has like the TF and the TFR. There's something about it that's like way more in depth, and it kind of makes you think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And again, I like the wish fulfillment stuff too. Certainly commission it all the time, but it is nice to have that kind of contrast and to get to go down that rabbit hole, I think is something that's just always neat to do. And it's the variety at the end of the day, I think, is what we all go for. Because it's like, you don't want to just have one thing. You want to have different ways of exploring this kind of concept in general. And making something a little darker is sometimes a fun way to keep things fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Like, obviously, I'm not gonna turn around from this day on and go, oh yeah, no, I'm only doing dark TFs or stuff like that. Absolutely,
Yeah.
100% love what I do, love the ideas, love like everything about what
Hmm.
people suggest, commission, request, trade, whatever. I love what I do, but it's like when you're on a diet and you have a bit of a cheeky like McDonald's or something, it feels good.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit of a cheeky McDonald's or a cheeky Nando's, and you're just like, this feels, it hits the good spot. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's something different, and it also, in my opinion, it kind of breaks the norm or the repetitiveness of it, like in a way, but without it being a burnout.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense. And we do love getting in a little cheeky change there. So. I got to say, as an aside, that's like one of my favorite like Britishisms. I think like it's just I don't know. It warms my heart when I hear a little cheeky whatever. It's just I really like
Cheeky
it.
Nando's.
Yeah, it's great. It's
uh,
great.
I know some of us still use it when we're around. I've got a friend who used to say that all the time when he used to live in the UK. He used to go, oh, cheeky Nando's. He still does. He's in America now, but he's like,
Oh.
oh, I can't wait to go see you guys so I can have a cheeky Nando's. And it's like, so honestly, right, you're in a group of friends. If you mention Nando's, one of you in a split second goes, oh yeah, cheeky Nando's. It's just one of those things.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, I guess then building off of both of those kind of conversations around some of these themes, I think one of the other things that I've noticed that has changed over time, in terms of how like the transformation community interacts with it is like TF triggers. So, I guess like to start off, I was curious to know, do you think there's been any triggers that you were the first to use or the first to use in an innovative way? Because I think that there are certain tropes that we all think about when it comes to TF triggers, but everyone has like their own kind of spin on what they do and don't like when you're starting a change, and I've noticed that for many artists, there's often like almost a challenge of like can I do this in like a way that no one's ever done before? So I was curious to know if you've ever kind of like done that or feel like you've kind of pioneered something that was unique or like we were the first to do.
Hmm. I don't quite know because I was thinking about this for the longest time, and I swear there was one where someone commented it or people commenting on it going, "Oh, that's a first for me." There's been a couple where it's a first for me, so it must be a first for them. Like I guess maybe I think a while ago I did. I think I'm pretty sure I did a binturong TF via popcorn, but obviously that's like everyone uses popcorn for movies, so I was like, no, it can't be that. I guess one that I thought of maybe that's not really the first, but definitely a big difference was like a big like, oh, that's a first, was I remember a TF I did years ago where it was someone turned into a burrito via being cut open with a knife and fork. So it was,
Oh my
I think it
gosh.
was the knife and fork that caused the TF or something like that. I can't quite remember. I remember the image in my head, and I wish I
Yeah.
had it still, but obviously because I've had like 10,000 PCs and laptop, um, I've like it's lost. It's ancient history, unless the commissioner still has it. But like I think it was the forking or the knife and fork. Sorry, was like
Yeah.
what was the trigger? So that was a first for me, and that whole image was
Wow.
honestly a first for me. um,
I don't think I've ever seen that. That is wild.
I kid you not, right? It was like, oh, I was back in the end of college, starting uni
Hmm.
then. So it was like, oh my gosh, it was ages ago. It was like 2016. So it was years ago, and I mean years ago, but like
Yeah, time, yeah.
a very long time ago.
Yeah.
But like, I still remember it in my head, and it's like, it's. I think it's gonna be one of the pieces I'll always remember, which I guess is a good thing. But like,
Yeah.
I think definitely the knife and fork were probably the first I've ever seen personally being the thing. Like, it's not so much the food you're eating turning you; it's the touching of the food with the knife and fork. It's the knife and fork itself TFing you, and it's like,
Yeah.
that was definitely a first for me.
Wow. I mean, I don't generally see a lot of food TFs, and maybe that's just because I don't transit in those circles. So if there's lots of food TFs out there and I'm saying something wrong, please correct me in the comments. But already that's almost like more unique. And so then to kind of have the actual knife and fork be the trigger itself to me is like I have never seen that before. So that sounds like you were the first to do it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But to me, that sounds pretty unique.
I mean, yeah, if that's right. Maybe I should patent that. Maybe that should be my new trademark.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You'd get down to business making a meal out of people. I don't know what the tagline would be. Something like that. I don't know.
I'm stealing that now. That's like copyrighted to me.
Okay. Perfect. Yes, you can have it. Oh my gosh. So then, to kind of like look on the flip side, then, are there any kind of triggers that you find boring or just kind of rote at this point? And are there any that you find like completely uninteresting or like even a turn off?
Oh, see, this is a mean question to ask me. That's a very, very mean, naughty, 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 like
I'm sorry, I'm a trickster at heart. What can I say?
naughty lumbags, naughty. Um,
Very naughty.
like that. Um, I'm scared to say anything, but I think the thing is back with trendings, like we talked about on Twitter and stuff.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a wave where people want the same thing and then it dies off, and then they want another thing and then it dies off. So it's not like it. Yes, it probably is boring or not something I'm interested in at the moment because other people have asked
Hmm.
for it 1,000 times. But ones that I'm not really into, shall we say, I think at the moment, because obviously I like the more darker side stuff, it's kind of hypno. I used to be into it, but I think something awoke inside me. I think it was the idea of like, I like them being aware. Obviously, I like hypno. It's really confusing. I like hypno. I like drawing it. So I don't hate it at
Hmm.
all. But for some reason, it's like, I don't like the idea of it technically when I draw it, because it's like I like to imagine it's me turning people into the things sometimes. Obviously, it's like
Right.
because obviously I'm the artist, so I like to imagine like
Yeah.
my pen's the wand and I'm the person turning them into that thing. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, like that's probably going to be really stupid to some people because
No,
obviously,
it makes sense to me.
but like I was like, I think something's ingrained in my brain where I'm just like, if it's hypno, that's kind of meh. Like they're not gonna be technically
Hmm.
aware of it, and that's kind of what I like in TF, where they're aware of it. So I do like Hypno because I like the idea of it being not so much a mind control thing, but more so a relaxing thing, like literally what
Yeah.
hypnotizer is normally seen as. Like I like it being a more so relaxing sort of thing, rather than like a
Controlling.
yeah, like a mind control sort of mind wipe, mind
Mm.
change sort of thing. But like obviously I'm still gonna draw it because it's fun, and I do love drawing
Yeah,
hypno eyes. There's something about it, it's the vibrant eyes that's so, and it's easier to draw than eyeballs for some reason, like pupils.
that's true actually.
Don't know why.
Yeah, but no, I think that that makes sense to me in the sense of if it's a mind control thing in your mind, it's almost robbing the reaction to some degree to the changes, which is something that's really enjoyable because if you've just been told you're going to like react in this certain way, it's not necessarily going to be genuine and you may not even be like fully aware of it. And so robbing the change of that sort of reaction, be it delight or horror or what have you, it detracts something from the TF in terms of your own enjoyment, not obviously the piece or anything. It's just it allows for less enjoyment, I guess, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Like I said, it's like a trend thing. Because obviously there was I had a moment where people were asking the exact same thing, and I mean the exact same thing, and it was all the same expression, it was all the same sort of hypno eyes, it was the same species, it was the same way, it was the same percent, and it was like I think that's also kind of what kind of made me go about it. Like I was like, please, no, it's fantastic because I'm getting money and I'm getting support and I'm drawing, but it's also like. It's like
Yeah.
I kind of have the same feeling that with certain expressions. It's like it does become a bore, and it's like, but you don't really
Hmm.
want to turn around to the people and go, "That's boring. Your idea is boring, or that expression, or that thing's boring," because that's hurtful. Like I've
Yeah.
had that happen to me where someone's like, I came up with a really I thought was a unique idea and a fun idea and something up the artist alley. They said, it's not an interesting idea, is it? But then they drew the same thing anyway. So
Oh my God.
it's like I do get that, and I'll never turn. I'll if it's something I'm really not into, I do tend to give them a bit of a option where I say, I'll do it, but with a slight change, or you don't have to go with this
Yeah.
idea. Do you have a plan B? You know what I mean? But like most of the time, I just kind of grin and bear it. Like I just go,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't, I don't really get it. It's like, no, I prefer them being aware, but I'll still draw it because that's
Hmm.
what the person likes. That's what the person
Yeah.
likes.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. You like look, like at the end of the day as artists, sometimes you're confronted with something that you're not super into and you have the choice of like just doing it as the person asks or giving feedback and being like, hey, maybe do it like this other way. I think this would be more interesting. And then it's kind of up to them as to whether or not they are, open to amending their idea or not. But it's always a bit of a give and take in the context of commissions, and sometimes it's just like, yeah, okay, that's what they want, and that's what I'm going to give them. Although now I am curious as to which expression it is that you're kind of like tired of.
Oh no. No, this is really gonna get people to hate me now.
Okay, we don't.
Right,
I
no,
don't have to ask
I
it.
don't, I'm probably, I'm British, I'm over exaggerating. There's two, and I'm gonna
Okay.
be fair. If you look at my gallery, you will 100% agree with me, right? And I'm not
Okay.
saying people don't have to ask me to do this, and I please hope people don't not ask me to do it.
Yeah.
But it is definitely it's the shocked and the horny expression. I it's the shocked expression the most. I'm so sorry, but like surprise slash shocked expressions have it's literally that scene from The Shining where he's on the typer. He's going, oh, play, oh, work, no play, blah blah blah. It's literally me drawing
Yeah.
shocked expression after shocked expression, and I'm literally just like, oh, oh, no. Literally, I kid you not.
Yeah.
Right, I'm so sorry if this upsets anyone, and I do apologize, but you got to understand from my point of view, I get asked to draw a lot of shocked expressions. But I kid you not,
Yeah.
if the first thing I look at when I look at commission info is the expression. Oh,
No, that's fair. And it's the horny one too. You're not a big fan of?
It's the one where it's the slit eyes and the panting. Like, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yes, yes, yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah.
really
Like
a
their eyes are shut and they're like, oh, like. Sorry, that probably didn't describe anything, but yeah, I think you know what I mean.
that I visualized it. Oh, and it made me cringe.
Okay, there you go. Perfect.
Like I really love expressions. People talk about my expressions
Hmm.
a lot. Like they mention my expressions, they go, "I love your expressions." I love my expressions. I love expressing. And it's like
Hmm.
being asked to draw shocked expressions all the time. It would grate on you. It's like working the same job over and over. It grates on you.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't blame people for wanting it because obviously I'm doing something right, and that's what I keep telling myself. I'm doing something right there, but it does grate on me.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And I think that, again, I think one of the things about TF is that there's so many possibilities that you can have. So it's always nice when you're able to engage with a variety instead of just like one thing. So I think it's entirely fair to be like, yeah, like, hey, I'm gonna continue to do it, but you know, it's not always like my top thing. And
Yeah,
I mean, hey, if people listen to that and they're like, okay, that makes sense, I maybe want to like try and get new ideas that are more interesting for people to draw. I think that's a good outcome.
I mean that's fantastic. At the end of the day, people go, hopefully people understand where I'm coming from with saying that and understand that,
Hmm.
like not just me but other people, like other artists and content creators, they do like a bit of change, like literally, like
Yeah.
TF or not TF. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they like a bit of a shake up, and I think that's maybe why I like unwilling stuff so much because I've kind of gotten tired, or personally tired of the happy side. I'm now grouchy.
No happiness allowed. You will all become cows and you will not be happy about it. Like,
Right, that's my next doodle for next time.
there you
Just my
go.
character being like, no fun allowed, but it's just
No fun
unhappy
allowed.
cows everywhere.
Oh my gosh. And it's I think this is a fun segue to my last question here because it's like, on the topic of triggers, I just sometimes I feel like it's really hard to keep them fresh and interesting, because like honestly, like there have been times I have commissioned art or like I'm doing art and like I just completely forget about the trigger. I'm just like, okay, there's a change happening, whatever, let's do the thing. And so I wonder if you have any thoughts on like how we can keep triggers fresh and interesting because sometimes it feels like you're going through the same five or six triggers and then it's like, okay, well, like, is this actually integral to like me like really enjoying this picture? Maybe it is just seeing the actual changes and not caring about how they started.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Like people seem to just be interested in the actual like change rather than the trigger or like the story of it all. I think what really like, for example, like I could think of like a bit of a story sort of thing. Like an example is like my girlfriend Joel. She is kind of getting into the whole TF thing, but she honestly has some of the freshest triggers for TFs I've seen in a very, very long time. Like a very long time. Almost like harkering back to the old like TF that we might have been introduced to. Like
Hmm.
she's currently doing one where it's like you get turned into a cow via a massage, but it's called like
Ooh.
massage. So it's like, but she's always like, because she's like she studied beauty therapy, so she's using her knowledge of that into her art and making it something bovine but also TF related. So it's like, I think,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's just the fast paced nature of everyone that just seems to like have like it's like a Snapchat sort of like mindset, shall we call it, where they just
Hmm.
want what they want. They don't want a build up. They just want the thing. Like they just want
Yeah.
the TF.
Yeah. They don't want the like foreplay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost like it's going endangered at this point. But
Yeah.
I think really like if people want it, I generally think something I do is like I look back on ones that are quite popular, so like collars, food, um,
Hmm.
cursed objects, witches, lamps, but also look at things that like kind of could also work, like maybe look at an object around you and just go, what would happen if I turn into, like, what would happen if I touch that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it literally doesn't
Hmm.
have to have, like, an in-depth lore to it, shall we say.
Yeah,
Like I'm looking at a squishy mellow of a dragon, and I'm just like, I could already think of like three ideas with that as a trigger without it being like,
yeah,
oh, it's a cursed dragon squishy mellow that's like from handed down through generations, and it's like it's twisted with the souls of the damned and all that. It's like it's literally just like it's just a squishy mellow, and I just want to turn into a squishy mellow dragon plushie, please. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
literally just look at objects around you and just go, yeah. Or like, again, maybe if you want to do it, just do the typical stuff, like do the lamp, do the genie. Like,
yeah.
I do think there needs to be more of a increase of like TF triggers again. I don't see
Hmm.
many of them anymore, like, or get asked to add many of them anymore. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's not a case of like, it's obviously some people might struggle with it if they've not got the artistic say flair or aphantasia or something like that. But it's not
hmm.
impossible to think of triggers. Like literally what I said, just think of the typical ones if you struggle. Or maybe
Yeah.
like tweak it so maybe it's a bottle of water. But it's a bottle of water from a cursed river in Scotland. You
Yeah,
know what I
like,
mean?
oh, and now you're gonna turn into a Highlands creature, like,
Yeah, Highland Cow TF, boom, right there, without the
yeah,
milk, you know what I
exactly.
mean? Just, no milk, just water. Didn't see that coming.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
But it's like,
Or an SCTF. An
exactly.
SCTF would
Oh,
be
even
good.
better.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
love
yeah.
Nessie. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's exactly it. And it's like, or like, I remember a while ago there used to be this big old phase of fairy tale TFs, like, what was it? What was it called? Nursery rhyme TFs, where it's like,
Oh yeah.
but it was like nursery rhymes. It was like Three Brian's Mice and stuff like that. That was the TF, and it's like I even got commissioned once or twice, I think, to draw a couple of those. I can't remember which one I was doing, but like stuff that's already existing, and then using that as a trigger. I think it's like it's not necessarily like trying to keep it fresh and interesting. I think it's more so there's just not been a push for it, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why, and I wish I knew why. Like, I wish like we could gather people and go, why don't you want the trigger anymore? Why don't you have the trigger?
Yeah.
Like that's what I want to ask. Like, I really want to know if anyone knows why they personally don't want the trigger anymore, or
Hmm.
for certain things.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And honestly, as someone who I definitely have noticed, like, I've not had the trigger in it a few times more recently. When I've like tried to like think about it critically, sometimes I think it's literally I've just forgotten about it.
Mm,
And I think but that almost speaks in a sense to like if there's stagnation overall, then it's less of a focus even for the people who might be really interested in it. So I wonder then if it's almost like if we were like making more of a conscious effort around it, maybe that would help to bring it back to some degree, question mark. Although I gotta say, when you said like, oh yeah, look around you and like think of objects that could like start a change. I'm sitting here with like I have Funkos on either side of my computer, and again, I'm showing my whole ass here, but I'm like, oh, that could technically trigger a change. I mean, they're all Funkos of furry characters, so I'm like,
mm.
oh, that actually would work. So now I have an idea in my mind, but anyways.
I do think it is like you said, more of like it's like trying to remember or trying to get the effort to do it. Like a lot of things are like fast paced, like going back to the whole Twitter thing. It's like
Yeah.
you got to get there and you got to get out there fast, and it's like your your algorithm trains leaving the station. You got to go get it. Like, and sometimes as we grow up, things we get caught up in responsibilities and stuff like that. So sometimes you don't necessarily think about the TF triggers. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like it's not necessarily something you like need to beat yourself up, but you just save that for later. That's what I see it as
Yeah.
like, or like build on it and make it a series, or make it something that you can use for later for something grander. Like I do think it is like probably like you said, it's something people forget nowadays, rather than there's a lack of interest. But it's why? Like it's like it makes you wonder why. Like I know I just said like it could be any reason, but it's like there must be something more because like you'd think normally throughout the history of TF or like the main media, like mainstream TF, like with werewolves, it's moons. With like, you
Mhm.
know, donkeys, it
Yeah,
could be
there's usually
lettuce.
triggers.
Yeah, like cabbages or Pleasure Island. Like there's triggers, and it's like, why nowadays have we kind of forgotten that, or like we don't do it that much anymore?
It's a good question. I'm curious if people would like to sound off in the comments with their thoughts on this. I'd love to hear more perspectives on this because it's a question that I've thought about quite a bit, and I think you've given some good answers to it, to be completely honest. But I also feel like there's just like so many potential reasons as to what it could be. And it's like it feels like it's a confluence of like a bunch of different things. It's not any one particular thing, and I think we've hit on some of them here, which is nice.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I'm generally interested as well. Like I'm always interested in finding out like certain things about people. Like this is like generally really interesting because I didn't even realize that till now. Like what you were saying about the triggers, and it's like I've been thinking about it, and I was like, even I didn't notice it. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't even notice these things until someone points it out. Like I'm looking back and I'm trying to think of anything that I've done that's like kind of been a trigger, and I can't necessarily think of it. Like some people like some of my Patreon members just go like there's one that Tim Tam gets quite often.
Hmm.
I like to think maybe it's the collar, even if they don't say it's the
Yeah.
collar, or maybe it's the idea of like the junk change and like that's the trigger. Like it's hard to like it's without knowing it, you don't know. Like
Yeah.
is there a trigger or is there not?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's really interesting. So, we do have a few audience questions that I'd love to go through with you. And one of them is very topical given our conversation today. So, Spunky the TF Skunky asks, are cow udders truly considered safe for work? Sure, you see them on regular cows, IRL, hanging freely, but seeing those growing out of a person's belly probably would startle whoever ended up finding this type of art. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Trust me to get the other question. um, given the topics.
Yeah.
Ah, so this is something another one that I've always asked myself over and over again. Like I even to this day I still go, oh gosh, is it or is it not? It's kind of a case of is it depending on like whether they're lactating or not. If they're lactating, then sure, I guess they're not really not safe for work because it's like there's fluid coming out of a not really genitalia. It's not really genitalia. It's like a nipple. So
Hmm.
it's like,
Yeah.
but even that is that not safe for like is that safe for work? Because it's like it's milk. It's like it's
Yeah.
an interesting question. I personally don't think unless they're lactating heavily, I think it
Hmm.
is safe for work because it's kind of
Yeah.
like a nipple, like or at least
Yeah.
mature. I mean, I'll go be fair. You're on a furry site, so the least startling thing you'll see on the front page, for example, is udders. Let's just say that.
No, it's true. And honestly, I mean, I agree with you. I do think they are safe for work generally. I feel like the framing around, oh, well, another person might like who's not into this stuff might stumble upon it. That I think is kind of it's like a misdirection of the in a sense because it's like we don't make this content for those people and like they're probably going to think almost all of the content that is like transformation and people are being vaguely like horny posting about is not safe for work. So I don't really think about it through the lens of other people. I think within the context of the community, like you said, like you're on a furry site, if it's just like a cow udder, I really don't think that's a big issue unless, like you said, it's like the person changing has like the horny expression and there's like milk everywhere, then it's like, okay, yeah, that's probably not safe for work.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about context and that the whole thing rather than just the singular thing. I mean, for gosh
Hmm.
sakes, like you've got media that have udders and they're on television. Like, like you got
Yeah,
Otis, you got cow chicken, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I mean, obviously cow chicken was meant to be the sort of like, ooh, that's a bit weird sort of thing, but like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean, and I think that's actually a really great point that like, you see this stuff like in like cartoons and like they put cow udders in there, so why wouldn't it be safe for work? So the next question I have here is from Fire, and I really like this question. They ask, what fictional universe would you like to be plunged into, and what would you get turned into to fit in?
This one's been played on my mind for like days because I was like, oh, maybe this one, because then I give you this. But then maybe this one, because then I'll give you this. I'm just like, oh no.
It's hard. It's hard to pick. I mean, look. I'll get my rote answer out of the way. Obviously, I'm going to pick Ratchet and Clank. Obviously, I'm going to pick turning into a Lombax. But to give a more interesting answer, if I had to pick a second one, I actually think I would pick the Spyro universe, and I would want to be a hot dragon daddy. That would be my like second
Oh.
one. So
I'm not
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, you chose your second answer as my first answer. So that's quite
Oh,
funny.
shoot.
Uh, Obviously, I'm a massive fan of Spyro. Like, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Wildcrats, but technically they are based in real life.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a bit like, I mean, it would be fantastic to be able to have the freaking suits. I mean, I made one of them with felt.
Yeah.
Um, so I've got,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, if I could ever, I got pictures of it. I haven't got the full thing because I made the gloves and the vest and everything. So,
Yeah.
it's all made of felt. One day I'll be able to do one where it's like actual, but hopefully with the TF. But
Yeah.
I was thinking like Minecraft because then I could be like, like an Ender Dragon, or like I was thinking
Ooh.
Pokemon because then I could be like Luxray or Mightyena or Ditto because then I could be everything at once. And
Yes. The TF Pokemon.
I was thinking about it. I was like, there's two. One of them is obviously Spyro, but the other one actually might be interesting. It's Sly Raccoon.
Oh, very nice. Excellent choice.
I was either thinking Sly Raccoon or Ty the Tasmanian Tiger because I absolutely adore both those games. But I think Sly
Yeah.
Raccoon because there's a bit more to it. I don't exactly know what
Hmm.
I'd be. Like, I would probably be like a Binturong in that universe, or maybe a fox because obviously, like, a British, so a fox or a
Yeah.
badger. Um, Whether or not I'll be on Sly Team, I don't know. Maybe I could be like another Murray or the Murray or something like that.
Yeah.
But like, I definitely want to be in Sparrow because this is gonna, this is something that's gonna go back into the position sort of theme.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
in the first three Spyro games, there's no female dragons other than the babies. So where do the eggies come from? It's like
Good fucking question.
so I'm asking the big questions now.
Yeah.
But it's like it's something I've always wondered. There's baby female dragons, I'm assuming, because they come out with little like bows and they're obviously like very feminine
Yeah.
acting. But it's like the big daddy dragons. Where are the big mummy dragons? Other than Cinder, but
Yeah.
obviously Cinder doesn't count in that universe. But it's like,
Yeah.
where's the big mummy dragons in
I
Spyro?
know. It's like what is going on here? Why are they not around? Like, oh.
So I was just like, I would change that and I'll become a big mummy dragon in the Spyro universe. Just watch me.
There you go. You're gonna make waves. I love it. I love it. The next question we have is from I cannot do any tricks sadly, and they ask, again, this is apt. What's your favorite food themed TF trigger you've seen out there while looking for TF content? Is it the fork and knife?
I mean, that's involving a burrito, so I'm just like, oh no. Favorite themed TF. That's interesting because I don't really think about food TF. I guess maybe animal crackers because there's like
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, because I still need to watch that like movie based on that idea of like animal crackers. But
Mm.
like, I mean, it's all up my alley. It's got circus, it's got TF, it's got Danny DeVito. How could I not love it?
Can never go wrong with that.
No. But I guess I also like it's very stereotypical, but I do like Asian food because I like Chinese and Asian food. So I'm like, you
Mhm.
eat a noodle, you eat noodles, you become like a noodle dragon and stuff like that.
I love that one.
Or like, you eat sushi and you become like, I don't know, some like a bear or something like that, like
Mhm.
or like you eat honey and you become a bear or something like that. Like it's like food related to the animal sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I guess my favorite one would probably be the animal crackers because that's like what if you ate the head of a lion but the body of a bear? Do you become like a head of a lion and the body of a bear, or do you just become one or the other? Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's like so many ideas there.
You could have so many combinations and so many cool like situations.
What if you just ate the entire box?
Oh, now there we're getting spicy there. You're gonna get a chimera out of that.
Hell yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the noodles. That was gonna be my answer, so I will come up with another answer. I think if I had to pick another one, I do like the transformations where you eat a food and then the result is a little more esoteric, for lack of a better term. How do I describe this? Like you eat a food and then the result, it's not the first thing you would think of, but it still works. So I think in the vein of that, like you kind of mentioned with the sushi, like if you eat sushi and then you become a shark, it's not like you're becoming the thing that the food is, but you are becoming something that would eat that food. So I guess what I'm saying is like for example, there was this kind of gag drink that was going around that was like called grass soda. So like if you drank that and then you became something that eats grass, I think that would be really cool. So I that would be like my kind of answer.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like Red Bull here. It's like Red Bull gives you wings, and it's like, my baby mind always thought I did have wings, so I had Red Bull when I was a child. Very disappointed I didn't grow wings, but oh well.
Damn it.
I can still hope. But yeah,
Yeah.
like that's really clever with the whole sushi and the shark idea, because it's like you said, it's like technically something that is related to it in a way, but it's like not it.
Yeah. Agreed. I really dig that. And then our last question here is from Ulysses Duckler, and he asks, if you could TF people and it was always irreversible, how would you make sure you're giving someone the right form? Would you worry about the potential for causing regret, or would you leave that up to them?
No, this is gonna get a bit dark and spicy, but
Ooh.
I wouldn't really care. At the end of the day, whether they like it or not, I choose by what they fit. So if someone's acting like a complete, excuse my language, bitch to me, I'll turn them into a bitch. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I like being the trickster. I like being the one that, like,
Yeah.
I like being evil in the sense of TF.
Yeah.
I don't care about what the person thinks, or like, if I was in the
Hmm.
situation, you know, if someone came up to me and goes, "Oh, TF me," I'll TF them into what I want. That's why ringleader Ari exists now, because
Right.
she TFs people based on what she wants, not what they want. Like she don't do that.
Yeah.
She's not a crowd. She is a crowd pleaser, but in the sense of what she wants to do. Like she knows what she's doing,
Hmm.
and that's what I wanted to bring to the whole like TF playing. And it's like if it's irreversible, then maybe they're that form for a reason. Whether it's by accident or by cause. Like if I'm TFing them, I'm TFing them what I want. If I want a squishy mellow dragon, you're gonna be my squishy mellow dragon, whether you like it or not.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think that's really great and definitely feeds into the kind of like darker spin. I think like if it was me, I also really like TFing other people and like being that kind of a trickster. My ideal would be for it to be not permanent because I do like the idea of like doing something to someone to teach them like a lesson or what have you, and then maybe they can go back, and then maybe they'll need to get changed again because, change is the spice of life. But if, given the context or the parameters of this question being permanent, I think it would depend on the person. If it was someone who did genuinely like want to become something and were like aware that that's going to be permanent, I am more than happy to give that to someone. Like they're like, oh, this is all I've ever wanted. I'm like, sure, then here you go. In terms of consequences, well, that's what they wanted. If it's like someone who I'm not as much of a fan of, maybe it would be kind of like a I don't care thing too. So I don't know. I feel like you can slice and dice this a number of different ways, but at the end of the day, The one uniting thing is, yes, I would like to TF other people. So, yes, please let me do that.
Please, please, all I want for Christmas is the ability to TF people into other things, whether it be by their will or not. Please, that's the only thing.
Exactly, please.
I've been good all
That's all
year.
I want for Christmas. Come on, Santa. Come on, Mariah Carey. Like, what is this?
All I want you for Christmas is to TF you.
You- Oh,
But
amazing.
that's a good point, though. Yeah, I think you are correct there. I kind of do take it back, but I kind of don't because I just like being evil. But like,
Yeah. No, and that's fair. It's fun.
it's like, yeah, if someone came up to me and literally goes like, because imagine, like, I can imagine maybe that could be used for good without it
Yeah.
being like for their selfish reason, if you know what I mean. Like, if someone come up to it and goes,
Mhm.
you could turn me into things, turn me into a dog, and it's like, yeah, but do you realize, the lifespan of a dog, what happens when you're a dog, but like, imagine if
Yeah.
it's like used for good in a way. Like, what if someone who has body dysphoria or, gender dysphoria and stuff, like, yeah, I'll totally up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that, honestly.
G- Goodwill TF is a good TF.
It is. It is.
That's another sort of TF I like, where it makes someone really happy in the sense of like,
Yeah.
they're sad and then they TF into something they actually generally want, but in the sense of like it will make them genuinely happy rather than happy horny.
Yeah. No, just the fulfillment of like their entire being kind of thing. I really like that too. Always a really good time.
Happy ending TF.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was all the questions I had for you. I was wondering if you had any questions for me.
Oh, do you like your eggs runny or scrambled?
I like them scrambled.
See, I don't. I don't even I
Really?
don't even necessarily like eggs that much. I would grin and bear
Oh,
them
that's
if
fair.
they're with like, some bacon, some beans, and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's one of those foods I have to cover up. I'm like a child in that sense. I don't know about scramble. It's the texture for me. Um,
Oh, that's a texture. Yeah, that's fair.
I guess I don't really necessarily have any questions. I'm afraid I'm all questioned
That's
out.
okay. Well, we did cover a lot of ground, so and I mean I appreciate being asked how I take my eggs. It was very topical given again our conversation today. So
Have I swayed you
amazing.
in the way to lay?
You know what? I think I understand it a bit better now. I think I'm going to have to go back and look at some of the pieces that I thought kind of touched on maybe being interesting to me that involve that and kind of revisit it with that kind of like state of mind because I think I do understand where you're coming from now. And now it's a question of me sorting out like whether or not I actually like that because the way that you described it sounds appealing to me. So it's more of like I need to revisit this now and think about it. So at the very least, you have moved the marker for me. So
That's enough for me. That's another mark on the board for me.
amazing. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. If people are looking for your stuff, where can they find you?
I'm mostly active on Twitter and FA, and I got my Patreon, but you're all under the
Mhm.
same name as BinturongBoy. Might be thinking about rebranding, but that will be all updated and all public and all that stuff. Just
Yeah,
if I can be bothered, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But for now, everywhere for the most part is BinturongBoy. So
Perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you to everyone for listening. Again, as a general reminder, we have a Patreon if you do want to support us. It's patreon.com/TF Tuesday Pod. But in the meantime, I'm Zill, and I'm really glad that you were down to listen to our conversation today. I hope that your week goes well. You are staying hydrated, getting some good sleep, keeping an open mind, and staying TFy. And we'll see you back here next week. Bye for now.
bye.